Hello and welcome back to the 15-minute memory videos. This is the final episode of this 6-part series, and on this video I'm going to be drawing once again a character that you saw in a previous video, the Henry Hoover, or vacuum cleaner really. And this memory is it was around the same time. I think it was the day after that I did this. So this is actually the only videos which play in chronological order. Is the last video, the penultimate episode, and this video were one after the other as far as which day I did it. And this, which I'm drawing, the first thing is the washing basket. So I'm in the utility room and I'm taking a wash out of the washing machine, putting it in the washing basket, and that's the memory. There's no reference, there's no photographs. You've just got to think of a memory that you can conjure relatively clearly and try to keep it to a line drawing and within 15 minutes. And this is one of those videos where that 15-minute limit goes wrong, because sometimes I try different ways of setting a timer, and on this one I think is another occasion where I'd set the timer on my phone thinking that I'd worked out a way to make it sound even if I'm recording a video, and it just doesn't work. It's not willing to notify you with an alarm that you're missing while you're recording a video. Probably dead straightforward and everyone knows that, but I really didn't know unless you try it and see what happens. And so I go over the time limit, I think by about 3 minutes again. I'm not sure. That happened before a couple of times, I think. I know that it happened on the one where I drew my bins at the end of the drive. I don't know which episode that is now, actually. Which one was that? Maybe episode 3 or 2. Maybe episode 3, I think. So for this one, I really straight away like the basket. It gives you a nice sense of perspective, that I'm looking down. You can kind of see the vantage point that I've chosen to take. And I could have got that wrong. I could have got that much better than this. But I feel fairly happy that it's an interesting start. You're looking down into the basket. There are gaps where you can draw lines of things behind it, but they're quite small gaps. So just as a structure itself, it's quite nice. And yeah, I'm keeping it quite loose. I'm still using this brush pen, so I'm trying to not correct mistakes, and I'm trying to be fairly quick with it and not too precious, and just to see how much I can remember, because I know how quickly 15 minutes goes. And that's why I feel like if I make marks fast, then I can get more done. However, the problem there is that it gives you the illusion that you've worked fast, when on this occasion, as I've said, I just go over time. All these little extra marks to show what your perspective is on the, like the depth of the basket edges, like those little inside marks that you can see me making. I'm doing the row below now. It's quite tricky, and I just didn't spend too much time figuring out how to do this, and sometimes that goes wrong, and that's something which I specifically forgive for this study, because it's a timed study. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's just about passable, in my opinion, as an interesting image, as far as there's enough interesting things going on even with all the mistakes. I say mistakes, it's because I'm not trying to be impressionistic, and if you are and you have wobbly lines and inaccurate perspectives, they're sometimes purposeful. And on this occasion it isn't. I'm going for as close as I can get whilst being quick. So I'm just being very, forgiving, I suppose. Yeah, I've probably already said that, but just trying not to fuss too much. So then, because you've got this nice downward elliptical circle looking into the washing basket, you've also got that sat right in front of the drum of the washing machine. And I didn't take a second to consider it. I just went straight in thinking, well, I know it starts with a circle, let's build from that. And I don't know if I've misunderstood the outline of the study, but that's maybe how you do these drawings. That's certainly how I went for it, was to just make the marks and see what happens. And it makes it interesting, but it also means that there's kind of there's a lack of consideration in a lot of these decisions that I'm making, where I'm just going in willy-nilly without really trying to conjure an accurate memory of what I see. Instead, this is all just immediate impulse. I know that there's some kind of a structure to the drum inside, and I know that there's kind of, not bars, but kind of raised bar-like sections where sometimes socks can tuck up against and get caught inside. Not caught, but, stay inside whilst you're pulling everything else out. And then at the back, there's kind of I don't know how to explain it, but it just looks like the underside of some sort of lid or something, or the top side of a lid, and the other side is the mechanism which turns it. So, you're kind of seeing something that is obviously shaped like that because it's got these indents for a reason, and it'll have a mechanism that helps to spin it around for the wash cycle. Anyway, the point being is that I actually really like drawing a washing machine, is what I realised after this, which I wouldn't have thought. I've never drawn one before or thought to draw one. And much like when I drew the loft, this is one which I do think is probably my favourite out of the videos that I recorded. I'm not sure out of the whole lot, because I really like the second one that I drew, which was a memory of going to a petrol station. And I rarely do that because I rarely use my car these days. And the other ones are, they've got good and bad aspects to them. But the videos that I've recorded for this series, I think they're fairly representative of how all the studies have good and bad points to them. This one, the same. It would have been better if I would have kept an eye on the time despite the alarm I'd set and stopped at the 15-minute mark. It would have been a better drawing, because I just start making marks thinking, well, I've still got time, so I'll keep drawing until it's 15 minutes are up, because as much as I'd probably prefer it not to be, I feel like what happens if you keep drawing for 15 minutes? Look at how bad that vertical line was going down. That was not purposeful. I think I'm just being really sloppy, thinking this is going really well, because I think the drum looks cool. The draw coming out looks, relatively believable. And the basket in front, I already quite like that. And I've not thought about the door from the drum. That's why I did that outside line on the left. The one on the right is the one which is really bowed in, and I think I'm just now trying to quickly go in and make marks with a quick, less hesitation, and just trying to think about, is there anything I'm forgetting that's in the utility room? And I move on to the other side as well, which is the dryer. And this is not quite as interesting. Here we go. That's where I've just remembered there. I wondered when that happened. I thought it was before I did the whole dryer, and I think the only way I can pull this off now is to do it that the door's open. And I think I remember that when the door comes out, it's almost like a little space hatch, like it's got a glass bubble almost to the door. So I tried to include that a little bit, but I don't know how much it looks like that at all. This is all quite, there's no thought in any of these marks. I'm literally just trying to hide mistakes as I'm doing it, going, oh no, I don't know what happens here and how to render it. So yeah, I just leave it looking a bit cartoony and loose and try to add a little bit more depth to it, but it's all the door's not the good part, and then I re-add the bubble and obviously try to suggest the curve on the other side, but these are all horrible curves to try and suggest anything circular. So I do a couple of flicks going outwards so that it's not just a bad circle and it looks like part of a mechanized door, with little latches on it, and then just move on, because I don't want to spend too long. You're not supposed to correct mistakes or go over lines, and it started to happen on that door because I just couldn't think of anything. So now I'm just thinking it's a relatively similar door for the dryer, but it's not quite as modern a model as the washing machine as far as I'm aware, because it just didn't need to be updated the same. I did that top line. Do you see the top circle line? That was wrong. I wouldn't do that now, because the circle, much like the inner circle, should be like the washing machine. So I just rushed there, and I should have really used reference from the washing machine, but there we go. At least there's a little bit of variance, but it would have looked better without that. Then I go back onto here, and this is where you feature the character from the last video, which is Henry. And this is where he sits in the utility room on the other side of a kind of cabinet divider. And I don't look at the previous drawing I did of Henry as a reference, because you're not supposed to have any reference for any of the memory drawings. So this is more of a memory of him in the utility room. Him. Have you heard me? It's terrible baby language. Of it, the Henry Hoover, in the utility room. And yeah, part of me thought, I wonder, should I look at how I drew him before? I know I don't want to put the attachment on, so I did it with an open, like piggy round nose, because it's when you unscrew its nose, not nose, but it's kind of, like where you attach that pipe. It's just becomes a round open nose, and the eyes again went terrible, and it's because of the speed that I drew it with this brush pen, where I should be going much slower than this, but I feel like I'm running out of time. And in truth, I probably have about 5 minutes left, but what I do in this video is take longer than that, because as I said earlier, I've just not paid attention to any of the clocks. I wouldn't have even known what time I started. I think I just set an alarm and then started drawing with the video recording. So a bit oblivious, unfortunately, but I've still got, time. I'll try to point out where it would have stopped, because I do think it was the better version of the drawing, really. And I was literally just continued drawing for the sake of it, much like I did with the other one where I went over the limit. 15 minutes is quite nice for a study time if you're drawing quick, loose stuff like this. If I do another series, it might be nice to not slow down, but just try to make the marks nicer, because I wasn't really worried about making nice marks. I just thought marks in the area of where things are generally. This actually, which I'm drawing now, I don't think exists. I didn't have anything in mind. I just thought something happens in the utility room where there are things just, I think it's drying racks and things. I'm just not sure, because it's things which I barely touch, and they're just leant up against the side. So without too much thought about what things actually are, I just thought, so long as it's a functional thing and it's not something which is decorative or anything, because there's nothing like that in the utility room. And then remembering the attachment pipe, which is all with loads of ridges all up it. So I'm trying to keep the contour curves in the direction that it would they'd go, to sort of indicate. There we go. So I changed the direction of my hatch marks there just to try and show that it's going up this way. It makes it easier to swoop them inwards, trying to get that taper. And it's really loose. It's not like, good or accurate. But if I didn't do them curved like that, there'd be no indication of direction. It would just look like a weird wobbly thing. There's probably better ways of doing it, but just for speed, I think that works well enough. Trying to get a quick a skirting board in there, and learn my lesson from the previous day where I did loads of ridges for the different, the different kind of planes of part of the structure of the skirting board, where it has just different angles and angle changes on the top part, instead of trying to represent that in line, which doesn't serve it. One of the things that I learned is just to minimize some of the lines for design reasons. Now I'm trying to remember things in order. There's nothing which goes in front of the washing machine outside of the drying basket, whereas the dryer, there's a stool there, and I say a stool, it's an old chair. It's kind of like a hairdressing stool, like a cheap one, where the seat goes up. I don't really understand the point for it, because the spongy seat is on hinges on the back where you can lift it up. I'm curious as to whether it's just something my dad's made, but he probably hasn't. We've got two of those, I think, and one of them, the spongy top seat part, has just come off. And this one still has it, thankfully, but it's a strange chair. And I remember that's sat in there to the side, and it's worth getting that in so that you have the depth again of something more in the foreground than the dryer. Just to give you layers of objects and things. I think if it's not here where I should have stopped, then maybe another 30 seconds or so, but not much. I'm almost there. I think now I'm just drawing the coats, and then I'll get the skirting rail along the other side, and that's where I should have stopped, because that's pretty much time. And what happens next is it doesn't really add much to it, but it could be worse. But again, I try to get in the lines of the it's not tiles, but it's kind of that sort of design which looks like it's a chessboard or checkerboard or whatever you want to call it, kind of design of just checkers. That's what it is, whatever. And it's not necessarily worth putting in. The best thing about it is that I leave these gaps in the lines, which I recommend to anyone doing it, so that it's not too solid, because in the kitchen I don't mind that it's solid to an extent, because they're ridges, because it's actual tiles. Whereas with this it isn't. It's kind of a design and a pattern, so it's because I think it's a lino floor. And lino, is that the word? Vinyl? No, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Whatever, it's some kind of, it's not wood, it's not a tiles, it's just some plasticky foamy sheet laid over the top of your floor, basically, over a concrete floor. But it's got kind of like squares, so it's nice for perspective to an extent, but I think I could have done without it, in the fact that I'm already a minute or so over time. It's a bit of a shame. And then I started adding those little marks in the right hand corner, which I've just stopped doing, and that's all stuff which is almost like shading, and you're not supposed to do that. So as much as this is one of my this is my favorite of the series, I think, that I filmed. Still got plenty of mistakes, which is part of the reason to do it, I suppose. Being a bit too fiddly here. It's one of those things where I shouldn't be trying to refine too much. I should just get it done and move on. But I suppose I've covered a lot of the room, so it all becomes now getting the floor in there to try and show a little bit more of height and perspective, which these are supposed to be squares. I mean, look at how bad that is for squares. I could have done that better. It would have just taken a little bit more time, but never mind. I don't hate this, but this is unnecessary really, but it's I'm trying to get in bits of the fact that there's instructions on the washing machine, so I put a couple of buttons in there, which is actually probably not accurate, because I don't think there's that many. I think it is all over to the right with the dial, and then below above the buttons have some instructions in rows, which I don't mind those dashes too much really. I can live with that, because that's quite, it's one of those things about washing machines that make them look kind of a cool design, is that there's all buttons and dials and drums, and I don't know, it's kind of, it doesn't look cool when you're there. You don't go into the utility room and go, whoa, I want to play with the washing machine. But to draw, it's kind of like, it felt like drawing something from a spaceship, or if I were to design some kind of, I don't know, even robots and things like that can have these types of elements to them which make them look cool, like bits of dashes looking like writing or information, or if you can get any lettering that you can think of in there. And then oh yeah, I tried to include bits of the washing that you see stuck in the drum, as I mentioned earlier, which is why some of the gaps are quite nice. And then a bit more detail on Henry, which would have been good at the time. And I think I go back into these dash marks, I think, and make some dots on the floor. He had eyebrows, the Hoover had eyebrows on the first drawing of him. And again, I put shading in there. That's a mistake. Sorry, it's all bad decisions from this point. I told you I should have stopped at the other point, at the 15-minute mark, were I to have known, it would have been much better. And this is now just going, wow, when is the alarm going to go off? I've been running through this drawing. So this is all given the same amount of consideration as everything else, but it's because I'm getting low on ideas, it's all just polishing what's there, and the polish doesn't really work when the drawing's, a bit wobbly. Trying to polish stuff like this would take a lot longer than what I actually get to make it really transformed and worth it. So when you start and you run out of time like this, it's kind of like when I'm at a life drawing session. If I'm there and I kind of get a good amount of drawing done and there's still time, I just keep drawing, and sometimes I completely ruin the drawing that I had, and I should have just stopped and started another drawing, because continuing to draw because you feel obliged to is not wise, in my opinion. It's not beneficial to the drawing or to what you learn. I think if I can learn when to stop, just like with this, I mean, look at this absolute mess. But if I could learn when to stop, then that's as valuable as learning when to start. That may sound like I'm just trying to use opposite words, but I mean, when to start a drawing is usually when you have something that you can project. Just like I projected the memory of the washing basket in the drum. That's what I saw, taking the washing out of the drum, and I didn't see it as this cool drawing. I just saw it as a memory. So, but yeah, it's like I said, I quite like drawings like this. There's bits of more organic shapes with the fabric, even though obviously fabric is, our artificial production. It's still more naturalistic float shapes to it than what you have with the other shapes. But I quite like the chair cutting in front. I like the different drums, not for the perspective on the dryer, but for having two drums next to each other is quite nice. And yeah, that's it. And that's it for this series for the time being. After doing more drawings, I said I may return to it, but I've got other ideas that are far more, I don't know, they're going to be more enjoyable and interesting for you to watch, because they won't be 15-minute line drawings. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the series. If you did, or if you enjoyed just this video, please watch the rest and try it yourself.